I've tracked my first year on a GLP-1 in so many different ways. So I sat down and looked back at all of it, and I learned a lot. Today, I'm walking you through the whole year, and at the end of it, I'll share the biggest lessons that I learned that helped me adjust how I'm approaching the coming year. Okay, let's go. If you're new here, hi, I'm Bobby. I'm a therapist and an artist, and I am documenting my GLP-1 health journey after menopause here on YouTube. I'm not a medical doctor. I'm not your therapist. I'm just sharing my experience and what's working for me. Always consult your own healthcare providers when you're making decisions for yourself. If you're excited about this, hit the like button and remember to subscribe so you can stay up to date with my journey. I love talking to you guys in the comments. I try to answer every single one, so always feel free to tell me what your journey's been like. I hear the trash truck outside. I hope you can't hear that. Okay, I took my very first GLP-1 shot on January 23rd, 2025, and today is January 22nd, so almost a year ago. I was gonna get all excited about my 52nd shot, but when I went to take my shot the other night, it was the 53rd shot, so I was like, I totally missed my 52nd shot. Oh well. But anyway, it's definitely been a year now. That first shot was 0.25 milligrams of compounded semaglutide. And I was prescribed that by an online doctor through the Weight Watcher clinic. My starting weight was 210.1 pounds. And I had decided to start a GLP-1 because after months of trying to lose weight, the way that I had always been able to lose weight before menopause, which is through diet and exercise, I was not losing weight. In fact, the weight kept creeping on. And even after a full month of doing Weight Watchers by the book, I lost 0 pounds. So I was like, something's got to give. So I decided to try a GLP-1. So that was almost a year ago to the date. Right after that first shot, I was tired for several days after, and I didn't know that that could be a side effect at the time. I didn't know so much. But I realized after the fact that the fatigue after that first shot was a side effect, and it wore off. I also realized within the first couple weeks that the medication made me quite constipated, and it would be a couple of months before I would figure out how to stay on top of the constipation, because it was so bad that everything I was trying it wasn't enough, but I was afraid it would be too much, if you know what I mean. So it took me a while to get on top of the constipation, but back in January last year, I didn't know that yet. I would say, it was late enough in January that I don't have much progress to report, except that I made the decision and I started. You know what's so funny is that I forgot to talk about the therapeutic effects of the GLP-1 when I started it. I talked about the side effects and how I tolerated it, but there also were the intended effects, and I noticed those within a day or two. I had decreased appetite. I could tell that I got full faster because a GLP-1 medication slows down stomach emptying. So I definitely noticed I would get full faster. And the food noise. The food noise was really the most important thing in terms of quality of life, that I didn't realize how every day, literally for my whole life, I was so preoccupied by food. Thinking about what I would eat next, thinking about food that I knew I wanted that was in the fridge or in the cupboard. So it freed up all of this mental energy for other things, having that food noise removed. I wasn't sure how to work the progress in reducing my visceral fat into this episode. It's been slow progress that my visceral fat index score has decreased. And the visceral fat index goes all the way up to 59. And 12 and under is normal, and I started at 17. So I wasn't off the charts high visceral fat, but I was too high. I'll put the chart up here and I'll show you during the months when it scooched down a notch. Also in 2025, I started making these weekly GLP-1 YouTube videos, and it has been amazing to grow this community and to just not feel so alone. When I started making these videos, I really just thought that it could be a way for me to make a friend with a woman who saw herself in my story, and instead I've made so many friends. I love you all so much, and thank you for being here, for supporting me, for leaving comments so that we can chat in the comments section. This has just become something that I never dreamed of, and I really appreciate you all. Then in February last year, By the end of the month, I was down 9 pounds. Woo! I weighed 201.1 pounds. I was ecstatic that anything was working to help me lose weight, but I was really constipated. I did not go up in dose because the weight loss was good and the constipation was bad. So we stayed at that dose. I liked my doctor I was working with. She was very knowledgeable about the semaglutide that I was taking. Also, in late February, I went on a trip until mid-March. I went to Finland for almost 3 weeks, and that was the first vacation, maybe in my life, or at least that I can remember, where I maintained my weight. So that was huge for me to go on a long vacation and not gain weight. Okay, so like I said, my visceral fat started out elevated, but not like frighteningly elevated. The scale does go all the way up to 59, and I started at 17. And pretty much right away, that first month when I lost 9 pounds, it went down to 16. Woo! So I was happy about that. These visceral fat index estimates are based on my SMART scale, and then as of last month, my Hume Body Pod. Visceral fat is that dangerous metabolically active fat that is deep within your abdomen around your organs and associated with all kinds of inflammation, heart disease, diabetes. So you want to make sure that you don't have too much visceral fat. By March, I was already feeling better. I had lost 9 pounds. I was less puffy, so I was wearing the same clothes, but they fit a little better. I was no longer feeling fatigue. I was still trying to get on top of the constipation, and I had maintained on a vacation. So all those things were going on in March. In March, I did not lose any weight. That might have been a sign to go up in dose, but my doctor didn't want to put me on a higher dose because I was still struggling with constipation. So I continued into April with the same dose of 0.25, which is the starter dose. That brings us to April. I didn't travel this month, so I was at home. I was just kind of getting back into my routine. It's usually hard for me after a trip to get back into like my exercise routine and my eating routine. So I struggled with that for a week or two, but then I got, back into my routine and just kind of spent April working and doing my thing, living my life. In terms of my visceral fat, I scooched down another point in April to 15, which I think just reflected continued weight loss. So I was losing visceral fat around my organs as well as subcutaneous fat all over my body. I finally got on top of the constipation. In order to not be constipated, it turns out I needed a dose of Miralax every day, a couple of Mago 7s at night, that's a magnesium supplement, 5 prunes, and to stay on top of my water and fiber. It sounds simple, but for whatever reason, working with my doctor, it took us a long time to get to that. I think I was hesitant to use the full dose, like a whole, a little scoop thing of Miralax every day because I thought I would just make me poop myself. I don't know. But that's what I needed to just not be constipated. Since I was on top of the constipation, I did have my first dose increase in April. On April 17th, I started 0.5 milligrams of semaglutide. During April, I lost 3 pounds. Woo! That's kind of typical for me to lose just under a pound a week. I'd been on the GLP-1 less than 3 months, and I saw my doctor and my blood pressure was normal. Woo! My A1C was normal. My weight had come down so that I was overweight instead of obese. So all of these good changes were happening. So before the GLP-1, my health was just kind of getting worse and worse. And my blood pressure was going up, my weight was going up, my cholesterol was going up, my blood sugar was going up. And within a couple months of being on GLP-1, and ever since then, I've had normal blood pressure, I've had normal blood sugars, and my cholesterol has come down even though it's still elevated. It's heading in the right direction. And my weight has come down. So clearly, my metabolism needed this GLP-1. It's helped reverse the tide of all of these health markers that did not look good for me a year ago. There's something that happened in April that I totally forgot about until I found it now. So here it is. Apparently, last April, I downloaded the Me 360 app, I probably heard about it from another GLP-1 YouTuber. I can't remember. I have no recollection of this, but clearly I downloaded it and I did a body scan because all that data is in there. And then I totally forgot that I had this app and I didn't do another body scan the whole time. And so I did one this past week. So I'll show you the April results right now, and then stay tuned. And when I get to now, the present day, I'll show you the scan now side by side. It is so interesting. I am not a measurements person. I have this mental block against taking my measurements. So this whole time, I have not used a tape measure on any part of my body. I don't know. I have a block about it. So this app generates measurements. This is a few months into my journey, so I don't know exactly how I started out, but I know now what my measurements were in April, about 3 months in. So yeah, stay tuned, and when I get to January 2026, I'll show you a comparison. I was still feeling really healthy. All that inflammation was gone, and I was down about 12 pounds. I did take a couple of trips this month. 2025 was a huge travel year for me. We were able to travel a lot in 2025, and I'm so grateful for that. So in May, I visited my daughter in Wisconsin for kind of a long weekend, and she was pregnant at the time, so it was really exciting to visit her. And then I visited my niece daughter in Portland, Oregon, where I raised my girls, and saw friends and my niece daughter for a whole week. If you're new here, you're probably wondering what I'm talking about when I say niece daughter. I have a niece who's like a daughter to me. She lived with me for many years. I call her my niece daughter. In May, I switched from compounded semaglutide to Zepbound. It wasn't because compounded semaglutide wasn't working. It was working, and it wasn't because of the side effects, because I'd mastered those. It was actually my own decision because I was worried that access to compounded meds would go away. There'd been some hearings, some court hearings, and where I was getting my compounded semaglutide, which was, like I said, the Weight Watcher clinic, they stopped carrying it. And so I would have had to switch to another online provider of compounded meds. And I just wasn't sure how long they would be around. So I switched to branded Zepbound that my primary care doctor prescribed. And it was a more expensive move than finding another compounded med, but it was kind of like a security move on my part. And if I had known at the time that compounded meds would still be alive and well, I might have just stuck with compounded. It was working fine, but I didn't, and I don't feel like switching again, so I'm just sticking with Zepbound. My first Zepbound shot was May 21st, and when you start a new GLP-1, you have to start at the lowest dose, even if you've been on a higher dose of another GLP-1. So even though I was on 0.5 of semaglutide, I had to start at the starter dose of 2.5 of Zepbound. I didn't have any major side effects with Zepbound like I did with the semaglutide. I was not constipated on Zepbound. I was not fatigued. I had a little bit of nausea. The first day or two after the shot, I took a Zofran and I was fine, and I never needed another Zofran. So I tolerated the Zepbound better than the semaglutide. By the end of May, I weighed 197.3, which means I lost 0.7 pounds in May. It was kind of frustrating to see the scale not move when I'd been active and I'd been, trying to eat right and everything. But at the same time, I had been traveling a lot and maintaining or losing 3/4 of a pound while traveling. I was like, I'll take it. That brings us to June. After 1 month at 2.5 of Zepbound, we increased it to 5. I had noticed being on that lowest dose, I didn't get quite the same appetite suppression and food noise suppression that I had gotten at the second highest dose of semaglutide. So we bumped me up to 5 of Zepbound, and that was great. Again, slight nausea in the day or two after the shot. I took a Zofran, it went away. I never needed another Zofran. So I tolerated the Zepbound well. And honestly, the medication hasn't made me nauseous since last June. 3 days after starting the 5 milligrams, I flew to Ireland for 2 weeks. This trip was a little different than a lot of other trips because my husband and I were traveling with another couple that was very fitness oriented, like seeking out gyms and going to the gym every day. So we were like, great, let's do it. And I worked out so much on this vacation. By the end of June, I had lost 4 pounds, 1 ounce. That is really fast for me. Not sure if it was all the working out in Ireland, not sure if it was the dose increase of Zepbound, maybe some of both, but it was great to have like a big, for me, big loss on the scale. I weighed in at 193.2 at the end of June. In July, my only travel was a long weekend to Wisconsin for my daughter's wedding. She had a small courthouse wedding. It was so sweet. The rest of the time I was just at home, again, just like working, doing my thing. No change in my dose, just kind of going along. And that month I lost 4.7 pounds and weighed 188.5 by the end of the month. This was sort of solidifying for me that maybe 5 milligrams was a really great dose for me because my weight loss was faster than it had been. It was also good because the food noise was just absent in a way that it hadn't been before. And my appetite suppression was very significant. Not so significant that I couldn't eat, like I wasn't averse to food, but I wasn't that hungry. In July, my visceral fat scooched down another point. So now it is at 14, which is 2 points above a normal range. So we stayed at that dose at 5 for August, still no side effects. I was gone for almost all of August. I was in Scandinavia, like Denmark, Sweden, Norway, for almost 3 weeks. And then I got home and right away went to DC for like 5 days. Somehow that month, I lost 2 pounds. I will take it. So at the end of that month, I weighed 186.6. In September, I was home, I worked out a bunch, I ate right, I was in my routine and everything, feeling great, and I lost just under a pound all month. I weighed in at 185.7 at the end of the month, and I don't know why I didn't lose very much weight that month. Maybe because I'd lost quite a bit in the previous 2 months and the body just, doesn't go in a linear fashion like that. And that brings us to October. I was mostly home for October. I did go back to Wisconsin for my daughter's baby shower for a long weekend, but otherwise I was at home, just working out. And at some point in October, I started to notice the food noise was coming back, and the appetite suppression wasn't as noticeable. So I did agree with my doctor that I would go up on dose, although I didn't actually increase my dose until the beginning of November. So for all of October, the medication wasn't working quite as well, but it was still working okay. And in October, I lost 1.4 pounds total, and my weight at the end of the month was 184.3. At some point before then, I'd come to terms with the fact that my weight loss was going to be slow and steady. I was kind of two minds. Like on one hand, it's frustrating to work really hard and not see results on the scale. But on the other hand, it helped me to not put so much weight, pun not intended, on the scale, and to look at all the other ways that I was healthier. One of the reasons I think it was possible for me to gain more patience around the slow and steady progression of my GLP-1 journey is that being on a GLP-1 makes staying in a calorie deficit a lot easier. If you've been on a diet before where you're kind of white knuckling it until you get to your goal weight, you're eating at a calorie deficit and it just doesn't feel sustainable. And then of course what happens to so many of us is we get to our goal weight and then we gain the weight back because it wasn't sustainable. So I've reminded myself over and over again over the past year how eating at this small calorie deficit resulted in small losses on the scale, but I didn't feel like I was on a diet, even though I was eating at a calorie deficit, because the GLP-1 decreases your appetite. You don't feel like you're on a diet. Also, I didn't feel like I was on a diet because I was just living my life. The appetite suppression was also something I struggled against because I didn't always want to eat. And I didn't want to just embrace that too much and not eat enough because, like I keep saying, sorry, I'm a broken record, but I just keep saying I want to get the nutrition that I need. In October, my visceral fat dropped to 13, so pretty close to the normal range. It has stayed there ever since. I have not seen it drop yet in the past few months. That's okay. I will just continue to keep you posted. I totally forgot to mention in October, I ate quite a bit of Halloween candy, especially nerd clusters. And, I was fighting food noise, the medication. It was time for a dose increase, and I hadn't increased it yet. And it was Halloween, and we were doing like a trunk or treat. And so we had bought candy. And my husband and I, we love to eat, and we both love nerd clusters. So enough said. On November 3rd, I started the dose increase to 7.5 milligrams of Zepbound. And then immediately I went to Austria for 10 days. I was active and hiking and stuff in Austria, and I was on that increased dose. And yet at the end of the month, I had lost no weight. I didn't know it yet, but I would make up for that in December. In December, I was mostly at home except for the week that my daughter had her baby. I went up to Wisconsin and spent a week there. And then I was home for Christmas. The 7.5 milligrams of Zepbound was still working great. I was mostly on top of exercise, but not exercising quite as much because of the baby and Christmas and stuff. But I hadn't completely dropped the ball. That month, I lost 4.5 pounds, which is a lot for me. At the end of December, I weighed in at 179.7 pounds. Don't even know the last time I'd been in the 170s, at least a couple of years. So that was a great way to end the year. Now it brings us back to January, which we're approaching the end of January right now, bringing us full circle a whole year. I started rucking. I'm still doing strength training, which I've done during this whole journey. And so far, it's January 22nd right now. I have lost 3.7 pounds in January. So that will be a lot for me, even if I don't lose anything else in the next week, whenever January ends. The last time I weighed myself, I was at 176 and still feeling really great. So here's the comparison of last April's Me 360 with last week's Me 360. And I won't go over every single measurement. So pause it if you want to look at how my measurements decreased. But wow, it is a powerful lesson to me of how much measurements matter. I guess I don't have to get over my block of physically doing my measurements because I can use this app. Thanks, AI. So I'm going to remember to do like a monthly Me 360 scan now, and I'll have my measurements because measurements show a lot that the scale does not show. I only wish that I hadn't forgotten last April. God, my memory, you guys, it is not great. You'd think with losing 34 pounds that I would be definitely wearing different sizes of clothing, and I haven't really found that to be the case, but I think I know why. I think when I started, I had a very stretchy wardrobe of size 12 large clothes, and I had started to buy some extra larges that actually I was a size 14, but I could wear stretchy 12s. And when I lost weight, all of those clothes became very comfortable on me. I can still wear almost all of them. Some of them are a little too baggy for me now. Extra larges are definitely too big for me now. And there are a few things that I can get in mediums, but not that many. So I can tell I've shrunk in pictures and in the way my clothes fit and just how I look. But if you actually look at what I'm ordering, I'm still ordering larges for the vast majority of anything I buy. Like when I shop at Ayuga, this whole time I've ordered larges and they fit. But see, those are super stretchy yoga pants. So pictures really tell a better story. I transitioned at some point from calling this my weight loss journey to calling this my health journey, because I just didn't want to focus only on the weight loss. I've been trying to keep my lean muscle mass and get down to a healthy weight. I started out medically obese. Pretty early in the journey, I became just overweight, and I am still just overweight. And if I just focused on weight loss, first of all, I don't think it tells the whole picture. But second of all, I think it would just burn me out because it would be so frustrating. Those months where I was doing all the right things and not losing any weight or losing, a pound all month, I think that would have just been so demoralizing. And by focusing on my health, I can really see a bigger picture than just the scale. It also just keeps me a little more insulated from diet culture, which we can't help but to be steeped in. I honestly feel like the scale moves in its own logic. The body sheds pounds in its own time. And it's really hard to make any rhyme or reason about this was a great month because I just had it dialed in and so I lost so much weight. It just didn't work that way, at least not for me. Which leads me to this lesson that I know we've all heard before, but it is just so true, is that consistency matters more than anything else. Keep showing up when you're not losing any weight. Keep showing up when you're not going down in any clothing sizes. Keep showing up when you're sick of showing up. And just don't quit, because all of that progress will add up. And I just lost my train of thought. What was I talking about? Oh my God. Was it consistency? I don't know. I'm probably 10 or 15 pounds from my goal weight right now. I don't really know what my goal weight is. I think it'll be somewhere in the 160s. But honestly, I'll hit goal when my visceral fat is in the normal range and when I'm not overweight anymore. My best lesson is that I can only control the things that I can control, like what I eat, how I move my body, taking my shot every week, staying on top of my medical appointments. I just had a OB appointment yesterday. Just had my eyes checked today. So that's what I can control. And the outcome of how fast my body changes is kind of just up to my body and not my conscious will. I think I'm going to stop dreaming of the day when meal prep and exercise just comes easy to me. And I think I'm just going to accept that those are things I'm just going to always have to be really mindful about doing, or if I stop doing them, like getting back on the wagon of doing them, because meal prepping and having some strategy to keep my body moving, those are going to help me to stay consistent. It's not just going to happen on its own. I'm not going to eat right without putting effort into eating right. And I'm enough of a couch lover that I'm not going to move unless I make it really fun and interesting for myself to move, or make it so that I'm really accountable, like a personal training appointment or a date with a friend to go on a hike. Lately, I've just been really excited about rucking, and so I've been wanting to do it. At some point, if I get bored of it, I'll have to find something else. So I'm just kind of accepting, like, this is not going to be easy, but you choose your hard, and I'm going to choose the hard work of moving my body and eating right and all of that over the hard of being frail and getting hurt and having diseases that I can hopefully prevent, or at least decrease the risk of. Okay, that's all I have to say on that. If you haven't caught my meal prep video from last week, go check it out. Next week, I'm going to be talking about my favorite snacks. I hope you all are doing well. I know the weather is crazy in so many places right now, so I hope you are safe and warm and dry. I love you, and I will see you next week.